If you're someone who has partaken in any form of media whatsoever, whether it be movies or shows or video games or anime, there's always that one character who is meant to be villainous or the antagonist that you find yourself drawn to for reasons that most people might not get. But you know why this character appeals to you. You know why they've warmed their way into your brains and thoughts, even though others might not get it. For example, although I understand why my best friend is obsessed with Hannibal, I mean, Mads Mikkelsen killed it, ate, devoured, and left no crumbs, and I mean that literally, I am not that big of a fan. Like, I get the appeal, but I don't really get the appeal, if you know what I'm saying. Now, if we were talking about elven gods who are set to destroy the world, to correct a wrong that they had set in motion that ended up devastating their people, and to do so, they had to betray their friends, and if you romance them, break the heart of the woman they love, then you're in my wheelhouse. And that is more my cup of tea. Because, yes, this is the video where I dive into my love and obsession with Solas from the Dragon Age franchise. A couple of days ago, I saw a tweet by Honor, who just recently got into the franchise and is playing Dragon Age Inquisition, where he asked why people are drawn to Solas, why we find him attractive, why we romance him. The big question was, why do some of the players like Solas so much? Honestly and truly, because he did not get the appeal. And honestly, if you're a Dragon Age fan or are remotely aware of the world, this question is a pretty valid one. A lot of the players don't like Solas. They think he's uppity and pretentious. They hate the fact that he has secrets and that he played the Inquisition to bring him closer to his goal and retrieve the orb that had been stolen from him, which he otherwise would not have gotten the chance to regain if he hadn't teamed up with us. And they hate that he basically betrayed the Inquisitor at the end of the game, and we see how far that betrayal goes when we play the Trespasser DLC. So I get the hate or dislike for Solas. It's not everybody's cup of tea. But if you're someone who likes complex, compelling characters with a narrative story arc that is heart-wrenchingly beautiful and has a lot to say about identity, false faces, and personas, and the lies we tell ourselves to cope as we try and navigate the world and make up for our past, then Solas is pretty awesome. Whether as a character you romance in the game or someone you befriend who ends up being a close friend to you. Plus, it helps that he's one of the better written characters we get in a franchise that is chock full of the most incredibly written characters in gaming. Like, for real. If you love fantastic storytelling and lore that is so detailed and expansive in a way that would have you theorizing for decades and swoon-worthy romances, then please pick up the Dragon Age games. Origins is a bit wonky, but if you're playing on PC, there are mods to help with that. And I know some people didn't enjoy it, but I personally found Dragon Age Inquisition to be delightful. Which honestly, I think a lot of people who don't get Solas as a character are people who most likely didn't really enjoy Inquisition. Or if they did, they didn't explore it as thoroughly as they should have. Because the game was bloated, sure, but it did have some epic moments and it was quite this character study on Solas. So as I was saying, I saw Honor's tweet and I responded to it. But Twitter has a character limit, and I figured that rather than put out a 33 tweet thread exploring the depth of my love for Solas as a character and why I find him compelling to engage and interact with, it's better for me to turn it into a video and work out my thoughts on him before as many of you decide to click on this video. And the reason I gave in response to the initial tweet is that Solas is the biggest nerd in Inquisition. He is a character who is obsessed about a topic he is passionate about and would spend several of your interactions with him talking about that topic for as long and as often as you want. And sure, there are probably people who don't understand why that would be such a big deal for me personally, or those who are confused because there are other companions who are also passionate about their interests. For example, Cassandra, who loves romance novels, Iron Bull, who gets a thrill from hunting down dragons, Varric, who is obsessed with telling stories. You get the gist. All of these characters have their interests, definitely, but none of them are quite as obsessive about their interests like Solus is. And I've noticed that part of the fandom considers Solus boring as a result of that. I've seen people complain that all he does is yap on and on about the Fade, and they think he isn't very interesting until, of course, we get the grand reveal about him and his motivations at the end of the game, and we pull back the curtains to learn his real name and identity in Trespasser. But the thing is, I am someone with obsessive interests. I mean, I have a YouTube channel where I talk about the things that interest me, that stay stuck in my brain, and I have no other outlet to share those thoughts than with all of you, which is something I'm grateful for, by the way, that I have this platform to discuss my interests. Because trust me, I probably would have had to find myself new best friends if I was talking with them incessantly about Bridgerton or Dragon Age or Mass Effect like I do on this channel. Personally, I am someone who fucks with people who have things that they love and enjoy to an obsessive degree. I find that very intriguing, very interesting, and very sexy. It says a lot about the depth of passion that an individual is capable of when they have interests that consume their every waking thought and moment. Of course, it also means that I'm free to dive into my own interest and we can both be lost in our individual worlds. It's something that I personally enjoy. And seeing that reflected in Solus from the very first minute when we meet him, and he, without asking, uses the anchor to close the rift in the sky and calls it and us fascinating, I was hooked. Every single meeting was a chance to have him tell us about the beauty, the magic to be found in the Fade. And those conversations weren't just about the histories contained in past wars whose reflections he can still see, or iterations of happenings from previous games in the franchise that show us that there are multiple perspectives to the conflicts that have arisen in the course of the story we've been told so far. Our conversations about the Fade are ones that encourage and reward my curiosity as the Inquisitor. Solus wants you as a character to ask him questions. He imbues you with the knowledge of these stories and experiences and thus cultivates a positive relationship with you by virtue of your curiosity. He rewards you for being the person who is curious about the world around them. For the players who only see Solus as being rude or mean and self-serving, I wonder if that isn't how they themselves played the game. Because in addition to loving Solus and his nerdy, obsessive brain, I also really like him as a character because he contains the duality of the experience that makes up humanity. He is someone that made a mistake eons ago and is trying to correct it, even though his attempt to correct that mistake could lead to the death of a significant number of Thedas' population. But he is also one of the kindest characters we get in Dragon Age Inquisition. And before you react in that knee-jerk immediate response of no, you're capping and talking trash, I have just one question to ask. Did you explore the Interlands properly and well with Solus in tow? Because if you did, you will know that he is the one companion of every single person you can bring with you to the Inlands, who approves of the aid you render to the people caught in the Mage Templar War that had spilled over to the Interlands. A lot of people aren't a fan of that particular part of the map because the perception is that it's just a bunch of fetch quests to have our character be powered up quickly so they can proceed to other regions in the story. And whilst I do agree that the many requests do serve that purpose, they are also a good way to get your Inquisitor character to give a shit about what is happening, to realize that our actions have very real, valid consequences, not only on a grand, world-changing scale, but they matter to the little people trying to live their lives. Whether it's the woman whose ring was stolen by her husband's murderers, or the family with the alien wife whose son is the only one that can make a potion to heal her, or the starving and cold refugees desperate for food and something to keep them warm. All these little actions help to make the people's lives better, and the only person who consistently gives his approval of you taking these steps is Solas. Plus, for role-playing purposes, I do like to do all those quests in the Interlands because I associate the Inquisition power that we gain with each of them as a way to spread the news of the Inquisition's existence to help the people and make their lives a bit easier with everything that is happening. I mean, prior to that, we are an illegal, not sanctioned group that the Chantry denounces. What better way to show that we stand by and for the people than helping the people and getting their goodwill? And as someone who appreciates the core tenets of characterizations in stories, even when they are subtle, this was pretty clear on the part of the writers and developers to show us through his actions and what he leaves unsaid that Solas really does give a shit. He approves of an Inquisitor who puts in the work to help others. He approves of an Inquisitor who is kind. He approves of an Inquisitor who is curious. And this is the same whether or not you romance him as a character. I see in Solas the duality of what we are capable of, great acts of service and instances of selfishness. But even with his selfishness, it is still driven by his guilt because he wants to help his people and fix what he broke. And you might not agree with me, but I personally don't see anything wrong in him wanting to take that path and make that decision. It is as human a decision as we can get from a being who has lived millennia at this point, because Solas is quick to point out that he isn't really a god, even though he might have been seen and worshipped as one. And speaking of Solas's godhood and his positioning as an antagonist in the story, which, like I said earlier in this video, I understand why some players resent him. They feel betrayed that it seemed like he was using the Inquisition, which I can always make a case for the fact that a lot of the companions lied to us and used the Inquisition for their own benefit. Blackwall, Vivienne, Iron Bull, who does take an antagonistic turn depending on your choice with regards to charges, which does anyone choose to not save the charges? Like, I figured we were all invested in that crew and with Krem, so why wouldn't we save them? Even Dorian and Varric and Josephine use the Inquisition's resources to aid themselves in their personal quests. None of these characters are truly altruistic, except maybe Cole. And like I said, if you played Inquisition as a bit of a dick, then there's a high chance that your approval with Solas would be in the pits. But outside of that, I do think that the reason why a lot of people have this visceral reaction to Solas is because part of that feeling is being fueled and driven by the rumors and the talks of Fenharel being the god of trickery, betrayal, and rebellion. And so we take on these properties and stories, forgetting that history has always had an interesting relationship with mythology, and the myths of gods are always warped by the people telling them and the agenda that drives them. It is why I am really excited for Dragon Age the Veilguard. It is why no one is going to spoil my excitement or have it dim in any way. Because in addition to the reasons I already stated in my 10 reasons why I'm excited for Dragon Age the Veilguard video, I'm also eager to play this game because we get to really know Solas. Not just the Solas who loves to talk about the Fade and appreciates an Inquisitor who is curious and questions everything he tells them, but the one who has all his mask off. The one who has once again failed at what he had set out to do and managed to make things so much worse. I want to know how the stories of him started in the myths. I want to know how he reacted when he first heard them. I want to know which of his myths are true and how and why they've been distorted. I want to know the one whose cunning served to liberate his people, and yet only a small fraction of them are aware of that, with everyone else treating him as the villain and antagonist of their stories. What about you? Do you like Solas? Do you tolerate him? Do you hate him? Let me know in the comments. Like this video if you enjoy what I had to say, or hit the dislike button if you didn't. The choice is yours really, no trickery here. If you think others should watch this video, whether because they too love Solas, or you want them to reconsider their stance on him and why he is such a fascinating character, then please share this video. It all helps my channel grow and is incredibly supportive of my content. Speaking of support, a huge thank you to my Patreons, without whom I really would have trouble paying my bills. Thank you all. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, the link to do so is in the description box. I make new videos 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. All my videos drop at 5 p.m. EST. Whilst you wait for a new video from me, do check out my 10 reasons why I'm excited for Dragon Age the Veilguard, if you haven't seen it yet. Until my next video, do remember, obsessing over the things you love? Perfectly valid coping mechanism.